Show is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota, a retrospective and review of all things Fargo. A new season of Fargo is imminent, and we can't skip to the end without taking a look at the beginning. So tonight we are discussing episodes 3 and 4 of the first season of Fargo, with the discovery of Milos's blackmailer. Was it Milos?
Stavros Milos.
Stavros Milos. Malvo unleashes a few biblical plagues while the law and the boys from Fargo close in on Lester. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37, and Steve is putting bourbon in the milkshakes. How are you, Kat?
I am well.
Excellent. Another 2 episodes, episode 3 and 4. We got the muddy road and eating the blame again. And this is something that you taught me from last week, keeping an eye on the Buddhist cones.
Yes, I made sure to look these ones up before. These ones were simpler to decipher than last week.
Yes. Now, with episode 3 being the muddy road, would you care to explain the muddy road koan?
2 Buddhist monks are walking along a trail, and they come to this muddy road, and there's a young woman standing there, and she can't get across the road. And so one of them says, "Oh, hop on," and he carries her on her back across the stream, and they drops her off, and they move on. They continue on the trail, and later that night, they get to a monastery, wherever they're going, and the other guy's kind of bothered by something, and the monk who had carried the lady across is like, "Well, what's the problem?" And he says, "We're not supposed to be around women. Wait, you're not supposed to do that." What? It's like, what, are you still, I let her go with the stream. Are you still carrying her? He's like, look, we could still do good things and not be get so wrapped up in our, in our principles or our restrictions that we can't help people. And it shouldn't be something that's still on your mind. You're the one who's stressing about this, not me. It's like, it's like, maybe you're the one with the problem, not me.
Now, what do you think that refers to?
I think it refers to the fact that throughout the episode, in the 3rd episode, Gus is thinking about the mistake that he made, and Molly is also kind of thinking about it. And we could see that their respective bosses don't really care. They're like willing to pass the blame onto them if something goes wrong, or it's like, they don't really seem to push it very hard. Whereas Gus is constantly thinking about this mistake that he made. We understand that it wasn't so much a mistake, because we understand now what Malvo is and what he would have done. And given how, Gus says he only fills in for the animal control, but you could tell the way he is, he's not really as cut out to be a cop as he seems to be. And so it would have ended badly for him. He didn't really do a bad thing there. And so he's still thinking about it, and it's driving him crazy. But it's not really something that he did wrong. And so he kind of, it's like, dude, this isn't as much your problem as your boss's and everybody. Like when his boss breathes down his neck, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna do this, you're gonna shove me. You're the one who's gonna take the blame for this," and blah blah blah. And Sioux Falls all over again. You better not fuck this up. And so that's kind of what I think where that part of the parable is going.
Well, absolutely, and and as we see in this, we do start off with the answer as to who the naked guy was in the trunk at the beginning of the series. And he was apparently in a gambling debt, and Malvo was tasked with collecting him. And that's where things went awry. But we do get some closed circuit television footage of Malvo doing that. And later on in the episode, we do also get, is it this one where Lester is headed back to Mrs. Hess, the widow Hess? And yes. I was wondering if the parable had anything to do with, seeing as aside from Molly, Mrs. Hess is the vixen, I suppose, of the series. Not that Molly's a vixen; she's actually quite adorable. Mm-hmm. Is it that the Lester shouldn't be paying attention or shouldn't have involved himself in the widow Hess?
Well, certainly, especially that Wrench and Numbers are watching them and getting their own ideas as to what really happened here. And we'll see how that quasi-weird relationship escalates as time goes on. But I think that's something else that could be referring to, because Lester, he just goes over there to simply administer the claim, and he tries to change the subject when she brings up the fact that, hey, aren't you the guy where the sheriff was killed at your house? And then she keeps bugging him about the insurance money. and is obviously putting the moves on him because she seems to think that's going to help, which suggests that there might be something fishy about the insurance claim. And he's just kind of going on with it. And I love that bit in the 4th episode when Wrench and Numbers are at the diner, and Wrench can't figure out, or whichever one is which, I can't remember, can't figure out why the other guy has a problem with this. He's like, dude, he's nailing it. He's nailing the wife. He killed his own. It's like, what's there to discuss here? And so I thought that was really funny. But
well, and that could also be in relation to the parable as well. I'm sorry, I'm hung up on the Buddhist koans just because it is two men who clearly murder is their business. Mm-hmm. And Wrench is the hearing impaired gentleman, and Numbers is Adam Goldberg. And Adam Goldberg, as far as he's concerned, he's like, what do you care? We do this all the time. Let's just do this and go home. And Wrench is, we got to find out whether or not he actually did it. Just make him say it at the very least.
Other wise things like Mormons apparently like watching you eat.
Apparently. Well, and it's those little tidbits that sort of make this quirky enough to be sort of within the realm of Fargo. Like the character moments, the tidbits of information, I do appreciate it, and it does still like without ripping off or without being a blatant copy of the movie. It does still feel very quirky with characters and interactions that keeps me engaged. And while I wouldn't say it's a comedy in the same way that I wouldn't say that the movie's a comedy, it's still a funny crime thriller.
Yeah.
Like, and we are getting to know these characters throughout, which is fantastic. I do appreciate it. I like how Malvo took the guy from It's Always Sunny, Glenn Howerton. What's his name?
Don Chump in the show.
Yes, Chump. I like how he's sort of okay. We're going to at the end of the last episode. First things first. Spoilers for episodes 3 and 4. Done. Good. No one's watching, and we're happy. So, but in the last episode, the blackmail note that was left for Mr. Milos had bronzer on it. So Malvo knew it was Chump. And so now, instead of the $49,613 that was originally requested through the blackmail for a Turkish bath, apparently.
That seems so funny. He's like, when he's freaking out, he's like, yeah, I'm the consequence. See, you made a decision. There are consequences. I'm the consequence. He starts hyperventilating. He's like, here, he gives him the exercise ball. This will help. Oh, thank you. And I'm like, this is too good. It's like, you blackmailed. It's like, what about the money? What about the money? Well, your note says you're going to tell the world about the money if he doesn't pay you. Well, what about the money? He's like, well, the wife was saying some stuff, and it's like, you blackmail a guy and you don't even know what you're blackmailing him for. And I just love that Malvo's intrigued enough by that he decides, I'm taking over the blackmail operation.
2 questions and a statement. What about the money? How do you know, or why the amount of money that you're asking for? How do you know about the money? And you're an idiot, which I really appreciated. Because even though Malvo is a psychotic, he's still very meticulous and purposeful. And so I do appreciate that that aspect to his character. And Billy Bob Thornton is just nailing it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if there were any awards, if he was given anything in terms of nominations as an Emmy or anything.
Probably nominated. I'm not sure if he won, but he definitely should have. That was such a great role. And what did you think about, I kind of intrigued me that he was in the beginning in the flashback when he kidnaps the guy from the office, and everybody else is just kind of watching and not really saying or doing anything. And he makes it all the way to the parking garage, and like, are there no security there? Is nobody called the cops? It's like he just kind of effortlessly just goes in and just drags him out. And I'm like, wow. And then when the workers are all saying different things, oh, he has gambling debts. Oh, no, I heard he paid for sex with a 13-year-old. Don't spread rumors about the man. It's like,
but he was definitely gambling.
Oh, God.
I do want to say hello to Matt G. Thanks for being here, Matt G. Taylor Swift greater than Disney Star Wars, Matt G, and that is his. I hope I didn't reveal his secret identity, but yeah, I thought that was. It reminds me because I've had a couple of jobs where you had like a dolly and a clipboard, and as long as you looked like you had intent and a reason to be there, people would let you go anywhere you wanted behind the scenes. And I figure if you're just dragging a man by a necktie through a insurance hallway, yeah, you can pretty much get away with anything.
Yeah, that just always seemed to me as almost as ridiculous as this series can be. Is just how far fetched that he just walked in and just started dragging, and nobody said or did anything until apparently after it was already over with.
Well, yeah, I guess they just called the cops.
Yeah, but I thought that was like, wow. And that is the last we'll be hearing of that person. So we don't know who he's in debt to or whatever. It's just that he was there for a job and he took him away.
Yes. We don't know where he was going. But, oh, well, I guess was he going back to, because we do see in the first episode or the second episode, we get to see like the car dealership that is the sort of base of operations, the hub for all of the different criminal endeavors that are happening throughout the Great Lakes region.
No, I know where that is, and no.
That's not the hub?
It is, but it's not anywhere near the Great. I can tell you what city it's in. It's not really much.
Okay. I think they said, though. I think they already said.
No, it's in Reno.
Right. Okay.
Nevada. So it's not any. He's like a national. Wherever that's like a national operation. Wherever they need Malvo to go or what job they think is right for him, they'll send him there.
Right.
So I don't know exactly how far he was going to drive this guy. So he kind of like Stavros was a separate job he had up in the Great Lakes at the time. And so it's like two birds with one stone. I'm going to, arrange it. Here's your jobs. Here's this list. Here, you go up to the Great Lakes. We got a few jobs for you there. And but as we can see, Malvo is a guy who's willing to, go off the, totally go off the rails, as it were, and even violate his own employers. I'm sure his employer would probably be upset by this because now he's taken over the blackmail scheme by killing the guy's dog and getting Don to get the blood into the plumbing system and buying all the locusts from the pet stores.
Yes.
Don, there's a call for you here. Huh? For me? Hello? Hey, Don, I'm in jail. Who is this? Well, who knows you're I'll think about this. Who knows you're at the pet store? My mother? Do I sound like, I don't have time for this. Just pick me up in a couple hours.
Well, yes.
Oh, God, that was great. And the guy's just so stupid. And he wants to open a Turkish bath, and I guess it's going to cost $43,000.
Well, and I love how how Malvo just sort of hand waves it away because he asks the question and he instantly regrets getting the answer. Like I want to open a Turkish bath because in this era they were very, and he's just like, forget it. Anyway, what do you know about the money? And so just pressing through because he is dealing with an idiot, and I guess easy to manipulate and certainly easy to intimidate. We do get Malvo going to, I guess, how you go and buy illegal prescription drugs from the back of a van, and a guy who makes zombie apocalypse survival kits.
He is somebody Malvo will go back to a couple times in this series. He is apparently very useful for getting illicit stuff.
And he goes and gets 300 milligram tablets of Adderall, basically, to swap with, and I'm not sure what kind of medication it was, or if they even indicated what kind of medication. It just says
it said acetaminophen on the on his. I've taken that before. I can't remember what it's for, like bacteria or something like that. But but he was switching it with that to just keep him really on edge and jumpy. And I wonder if part of the reason he's doing the blackmail is just to piss off the big guy, the former hockey player who serves as Stavros' number 2, is just really upset that he went for hire somebody outside, because you could tell that this guy would have solved the case in 2 minutes himself as well, which in a sense he should have tried to do that already anyhow, because he could see like when the locusts are all taking off everywhere and he gets the phone call, he's like, is that the guy? He just wants to snatch the phone from him and just deal with it,
Yeah. Well, and there is an indication of Milos's piety, I suppose, his reverence for the Lord. And so even Malvo starts asking, it's like, do you read, like, is this important to you? Like, do you believe in God? And it's like, let's just say that God and I, have you ever made a New Year's resolution, like to quit smoking or lose weight? And anyway, and he trails off, and you don't really get a sense of that until the next episode. But I thought it was an interesting sort of allusion to what was going to come. I don't want to say foreshadowing, and I'm so happy that there have been a couple of interactions between characters, and I thought, oh, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to wait like 3 episodes to have it pay off. But it's really a tight narrative per episode while still maintaining serialization. One of the things that I liked about this one, at the beginning of it, is the first time that we get a last time on Fargo, but instead of saying last time, it says erstwhile on Fargo. And I thought that that was an interesting sort of change of the typical, just introduction and say recap of what you would get in episodic television. Upon just glancing at Wikipedia, yeah, apparently both Martin Freeman and Billy Bob Thornton were nominated for Best Actor, and Fargo itself won for Outstanding Miniseries at the Emmys. So, and then we get to see the development of Lester's wound from the shotgun blast in the first episode, and that is just getting angry. And if he doesn't do anything about it soon, like, it's all swollen and pussy, and you really feel it in terms of the discomfort that he's in. And but he decides that he's going to go back to work. And everyone's like, oh, are you sure? Are you okay? And that's when we have sort of the first assignment from his boss to go and work through the insurance policy with the widow Hess. I forget her first name. I know the actress's name is Kate. She's great. Kate Walsh is fantastic in this. And we get more interaction with the bullshit idiot kids using crossbows to shoot at the for sale sign. Obviously,
I like she's walking him to the door, and he's like, "What is he here for? Have sex with? He's not really here to have sex with mom, is he?" And they're like, "No." And then she opens the door. She's like, "Just get off the poor man." And once he says who he actually is, she's like, immediately stroking her hair. Why didn't you say so? Come on in, and pouring him whiskey, and it's like, here we go.
Yeah, and she does. She throws herself at him. Essentially, even implying that, well, maybe it's about time you got back out there to date, and then regales Lester with the tale of how Sam and her had met in Vegas, and she was a stripper. Mm-hmm. So she's got great tits, and she's flexible, as she expresses. And that's when we get Tweedledee and Tweedledum playing with their crossbows in the backyard, and one of them shoots the other in the ass.
Yes, because he sees his mother totally going down on Lester, and he can't believe it. And then we see Wrench and Nubbers standing in the trees watching this all unfold. And get their ideas as to what's really going on here.
Well, and with a cursory observation, I don't think that while their logic is flawed, I would follow that flawed logic.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like, you didn't like Sam Hess very well, or very much, and now you killed him, and then the wife who has dreams of leaving and going off to some, back to maybe Boca Raton or somewhere warm climates, because she hates the fact that she's stuck up in the Yukon, saying that, oh, come on, I've had harder shits that I'd rather live with than those kids.
Which is, yeah. And I bet Sam Hess was a philanderer. I'm sure that she had her dalliances as well. And so then Molly's doing the investigation to figure out what's going on with her newly acquired CCTV footage of who she thinks is the perpetrator of the murder of Vern and Mrs. Nygaard. And so she doubles back and talks to the lady who was running the motor lodge. and the young boy, the gopher, who was pissing in her gas tank at his behest, at Malvo's behest, says that they found some tokens from from the strip club where Hess was killed.
Yeah,
And so the lucky penny?
Yeah.
And so Molly's all, oh, well, yeah, that's interesting. And so anyway, Molly meets up with a lady that I guess they went to high school together,
Mm-hmm.
who is dumb as a bag of hammers.
Mm-hmm.
And so very pleasant. Well, Minnesota pleasant. And she explains, and this is sort of one of those Fargo-esque moments that doesn't seem to do anything for the story except add just another little tidbit of information, because she's happy that one of her online dating successes had taken her to Acapulco. Unfortunately, he got bit in the neck by a spider. They thought it was a mosquito until they were doing it. And the spider had apparently laid eggs, and they erupted from his neck through, I'm sure, some exertion. But it doesn't do anything except pop back up at the end when we get Gus come down from Duluth, and Molly just explains. It's like, have you ever heard that this happens? I just don't want to live in a world where it happens, which is kind of hearkening back to the sort of the denouement of Margie at the end of the movie, where she's like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand it. So there is a naivete through.
It's them repeating the Mike Yanagita thing from the movie, where she meets an old random friend who doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything, and that ends up, and it's a piece of information. When that came up later, that got her to go back to see Jerry, and Molly finding this, like, what the hell does that mean? And she tells Gus about it, and Gus is like, what? Like, your friend's kind of, screwy in the head. So they're kind of, you could tell that Gus and Molly kind of have some chemistry, because they're both interested in investigating the case and are smart about it, whereas their superiors are not.
Yes. Well, and the Sioux Falls incident, which we don't have any information on Sioux Falls as of yet, but I am hopefully going to find out more about that, because even Molly's dad, Lou, is, oh yeah, we had a bit of trouble, because he says, oh yeah, you associated with Schmidt? And he's like, yep, he's my boss. He's kind of a prick. That's the one. And so he just sort of talks about his time in police, and so makes him feel comfortable. And then Molly arrives, and it just seems like a penance that Gus is attempting to sort of pay for his cowardice, for his letting Malvo go in the first place. It does get him a little, whatchamacallit, overzealous later on. But all in all, like, I liked the Muddy Road. Mm-hmm. I thought it's carrying things forward, and the intricacies. Oh wait, heavens! I forgot about the death of the dog. And
yeah, he killed the dog. That seems to be the first truly malevolent thing he's actually done, because it seems like when he walked into Lester's house, he probably made the false assumption that, oh, the sheriff's here, Lester must be trying to set me up. And he probably figured it'd be worse to just leave Lester there with that mess and having to explain it and stealing his car, because he hadn't spoken with him since then. He hasn't had nothing to do with Lester since then. And so, but this is like, man, you killed the dog. It's like, did you have to kill the dog?
It was where he lay the revised.
It is the blackmail
ransom note. Yeah, blackmail note, not ransom, but yes. And so that sends a clear message. And then further on, there is the first of the biblical plagues, with the blood coming from pig's blood, as we discover, coming from the shower, which was, I don't know, man, gross for sure, but also visually striking. Like, it,
for sure.
I wasn't expecting it at all. It looks great, and then obviously the response that you would have if you just, and it. Oliver Platt's so great, and he's just like, and then he starts screaming, and you see Malvo walking away from the house, just chuckling to himself the same way that he chuckled when he was hearing Lester plead for assistance, or when he was like snitching on the kid that he told to piss in the gas tank. Like all of this just as some weird sense of karma that he holds on to, which is probably why Malvo is going through this process, because he's been disrespected both by Milos and the hockey player.
Yeah.
And now he's like, if he said being beat up by a man in front of his children was worthy of death, if somebody did that to me, I would kill him. Well, then this entire situation is him saying, okay, I've been wronged, and there is an obvious path to receive justice, or at least enact justice in his psychotic mind.
Mm.
Which I appreciate. Again, sticking with the character and not what's it called, like mustache twirling villain, but as a man who feels justified in what he's doing, which is the same thing that they sort of bestow upon Wrench and Numbers.
Well, he also has Dawn go to the house and plant the idea in Stavros' head that this is God's retribution for whatever bad thing that he did, by saying, oh yeah, the blood and everything sounds real biblical. You ever read the Bible? And him just freaking out about it, and then the hockey guy just sends him on his way.
Well, and that brings us to eating the blame, and we get our flashback, the first true tie to the movie. We get a flashback of Stavros Milos, his wife, and young son traveling on a very familiar-looking road. Car runs out of gas. Wife starts berating Milos, and a truck drives by, doesn't stop. Stavros falls onto the road and sees a windshield scraper.
Well, first he prays to God and says,
he does pray to God.
If you save me from this, I will forever, from now on and forever, be your humble servant. And then when he looks up, and that's when he sees the ice shaver.
And goes over, and there's the money. Last time we saw that money.
And the blood.
And the blood. It was being buried by Steve Buscemi. Now, I assume that this would have been shortly after.
Yeah, it said on the title card 1987, so it was the same year.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it wasn't long after, I guess. Because you could bet Laird Snow would have buried that thing.
Yeah. Well, and it would, because then it would have, like, if a season had passed or anything like that, it would have melted. It wouldn't have stayed where it was. But yeah, it was shortly thereafter, which was great. Like, and again, I, as a person who didn't want it to be sort of a ripoff or a spin-off, well, it is kind of a spin-off, but it was like another one of those Easter eggs. And if you were just watching the show, you could go back and watch the movie, but you don't. It is basically treated as a miracle.
Yeah, because he gets back in the car, and his wife is like, what kind of man wouldn't stop for a baby, a guy who probably hasn't washed since the 70s? And he says, God is real. God is real. And hence why he called his farm, his grocery store chain, Phoenix Farms, because he's, making his comeback and believes in all this type of stuff. And then I like how that flashback ended when he was having Dawn work on the plumbing, because he's thinking about it right then, and the wheels are already turning. Then I wonder if this has something to do with with that, because like when he tells Malvo asks him what about the money, and he's like, it's impossible. No one can possibly know.
Yeah.
He's like, what about your wife? Nah, she wouldn't kill the dog. I mean, she's a bitch, but she's got a human heart. She wouldn't kill the dog. And he keeps saying it's impossible, but Malvo didn't press him at the time to find out like what that meant.
I wonder if it'll be revisited, or if that's just something for us to connect the show to the movie, or if, I don't know. You can't tell me. Don't tell me. No spoilers for season.
What do you mean in revisited?
Well, like in terms
the Stavros story is still ongoing, because
right.
Last saw Stavros in episode 4. He just got the updated call that $1 million in unmarked bills tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm just again looking to the future and trying to figure out whether or not they're going to say, so where did you get your initial investment money?
Oh,
because that was the question that they had in the first or second episode. Mm-hmm. And so it's an interesting it's interesting if they go back and like, I don't know, I just found it. And there is no other explanation. There's no other story unless you've seen the movie. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. But yeah, we have Chump sort of playing the role of the plumber and saying, no, everything looks on the up and up. Couldn't tell you how this happened. And then we have so Gus is usually on animal control. And so he's been called to go up to Milos's place.
He's been filling in for the guy in animal control, and he kind of flippantly mentions to the dispatcher, what, has the guy got the cancer or something? And they're like, yeah, leukemia. And he's like, oh, jeez. And he feels bad about it.
Well, that's terrible. Edge of Time is here. And yes, Edge of Time, I don't have anything against Frasier, but no, you don't see these kinds of things on Frasier. Have you caught any of the Frasier reboot? Do you even care?
I don't even know what service the reboot is on.
Peacock.
Yeah, I don't have the premium version of that, so.
No, fair enough.
And I heard that David Hyde Pierce didn't come back, so what's the point?
Yeah. Well, anyway, just a brief sidebar into Frasier. My mom's a huge Frasier fan, and I guess they were doing it on NBC, just on broadcast television, and she started watching it, and she's like, I liked the writing in the original Frasier. This is just silly. So one mom so far, thumbs down. Edge of Time says, it's no Twilight Zone. I know that much. Yeah, true. Well, which? Frasier or Fargo? Because from what I understand, Fargo is better than the Twilight Zone and Frasier. So, and yes, thank you for that, Edge of Time with Paramount. It's on the Peacocks. So,
Paramount.
Pulling up to Stavros's house, Gus gets an eye full of Malvo. He's just standing there, and so Gus jumps out of his car and arrests a man with no proof, no evidence, no crime.
What are the charges? We'll figure that out when we get to the station. Figured at the very least he could have said, driving the stolen vehicle, Lester's car.
Yeah.
But no.
Suspicion of kidnapping? But that eventually gets refuted by Bill and Schmidt. Just saying it's too blurry. What, the Zapruder film that you got there? It's nothing. And
Gus has already told Molly when he first went down, because his boss sent him down to Bemidji to actually tell him in person, or his daughter convinced him he should go tell him in person, and Molly happened to be there at the desk, and when he told her what information he had, she's like, damn it, Lester told me his car was in the shop, and instead it's impounded because it was stolen. And so he takes, I love it when they're driving to the station with him in the back, and he's like, you're making a mistake. Quiet. You're making a mistake. I said quiet back there. That's what you're going to say in a couple hours from now. And strangely, he didn't tell this to his boss once, Malvo just starts pulling that act. Like the first thing he does real slick when they bring him in is the guy sitting behind the desk gets up to cuff him when Gus says, this is the guy I wanted for the triple murder in Bemidji. He's like, oh, and the guy starts taking it. Because at first he's like, oh, what do you do? Hit a cat, And then he's like, no, it's for the murders. And so he goes back to cuff him. And then Malvo quickly puts his hand on the table and swipes the glasses the guy was using to read the paper. And he puts them on to look more, innocent or whatever. And the guy doesn't even notice that he just swiped his glasses. And Gus doesn't notice that he just swiped the glasses either. But it's like a tiny little thing that he adds to his character of Frank Peterson, which is the same fictional personality he's supposed to be, or fictional person he's supposed to be from when he went to meet Stavros.
Okay.
Because when he went to the mail and he didn't know who he was, and he was telling the postman, I need that. He's like, what do you mean? Duluth's a place. Everything's addressed to Duluth. It's like, no, that. And then he got the ID that said he was Frank Peterson. So this is apparently the Frank Peterson that he's basing it on. I'm from the church and I run the ministries and we have bingo night and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and Oh, there was so because I've been excited about this and I really enjoy it, and it is in reflection of Malvo's character, is because of the Minnesota Nice and how everyone sort of has the lilt and the way that they talk. I appreciated that as a cover up, but also I was checking out the trailers for other seasons, and there's one with Bokeem Woodbine, and there's a shot in the trailer where he's like, yeah, you're all polite, but I don't like the way that you're polite because you're really kind of fucking mean about it. And there's just a line there, and I'm just like, yeah, no, absolutely. This is exactly what I thought. That's what I heard was described as Minnesota Nice. It's just a very polite way of telling you to go fuck yourself. So meanwhile, we still have we've got Lester going to check out or hang out with his brother, let off some steam by shooting guns, and he acquires himself a stun gun.
Yeah, which he swipes from his brother, and his brother doesn't seem to notice.
Well, his brother has a whole lot of. He's got an entire arsenal. So.
Yeah, that's true.
And a penchant for pornography, obviously.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. And so there's that. So we end as sort of Wrench and Numbers are closing in. They come and they visit Lester at the insurance company, the insurance sales retail boutique, whatever, and basically just start intimidating him on. Oh, and he gets a call saying that his car is in St. Paul.
Duluth.
In Duluth? Okay. So many
impounded. And then you'll have to pay cash to get it back.
Don't forget, bring cash. And then out of happenstance is when we get Molly showing up, feigning an interest in insurance, and then our inadvertent. Oh wait, so Wrench and Numbers, they leave. Strong handshake, which is agony for Lester because of the wound.
Mm-hmm.
And so she very deliberately shows the photo of Malvo from the CCTV so that Lester responds. And so she's 100% sure that Lester knows who Lorne is, which is, I thought, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just as she's got that's some good police work there, Molly. So that was great. And as sort of the situation is tightening for Lester, he is kidnapped. He is thrown in the trunk of a car.
Yeah, I found it surprising that up until that point, it didn't seem like he ever went back to the drugstore to get the proper treatment that he was getting for the hand. It's like, oh, just because Molly showed up, I guess he can't go. He seems to think he can't go back. It's like, you could have treated that. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have been great because the bullet, the shell is, the BB or whatever is still in there. But I also wonder why you didn't just like travel out of town, go to another state or another hospital or something, and make up any story and get them to take it out for you. Like an urgent care clinic or something, and instead he's just letting it simmer.
Well, and also considering that he was doing he was firing off the machine guns with his brother.
Yeah,
that would have killed.
Oh God, yeah, just to hold that thing, because that's the same gun that he dropped earlier in the earlier episode and thought he broke it, and now his brother's letting him hold it again because he's excited that Lester's actually doing something manly and exciting and shooting the thing off, and it's like, that's gotta hurt.
And
but
I was thinking maybe it would have been some sort of subterfuge. So he's like, oh, I was shooting off guns with my brother, and this is, I guess, some metal got into my hand or something. But that hasn't come back up yet. Hope maybe, but it was all bandaged up, and he unwraps it, and his hand was like swollen. Like I've been stung by a wasp, and I got like a nasty allergic reaction, and it was the same kind of thing where it was all just puffy and everything. It's like, you've got to go to a hospital, man.
And it's all discolored around his arm, like it's turning yellow and pussy stuff coming out of it. It's like, ugh. And that's your hand or right hand, man. It's like, dude. But no. I love how they kidnapped him though. I thought that was hilarious. Where he gets the phone call again, because this is a little bit later, and it's the same guy from the impound lot. He's like, "Yeah, I gotta say, there's some forensics are doing a sweep of your car." They're what? Yeah, they're sweeping down your car. You can't have it until then, but I'll call you back when it's ready. And he's like, okay, and he hangs up, and then Wrench is like, our number's like, oh, howdy, Lester, and then just jumps in the car, which I thought was really funny.
Well, and it was a great. That's the thing with Numbers. He is he's obviously the charm, while Wrench is the muscle, and so it's like, hey, Lester, just to distract him, and then boom, in the back of the car. So he calls from his 2006 cell phone, and calls his brother and just says, "Oh no, don't! I think I'm being kidnapped. I don't know where I'm going. Never mind. Wait a second. It's a prank."
Yeah, because he realizes he has the taser with him, which he forgot because it was in his jacket pocket. Which even then, in that situation, you're putting a lot of faith in your ability to take these two clear pros over one taser to say, oh, it's a prank, never mind, and just hang up on him. But that's Lester.
That is Lester. Well, and also he does have sort of peaks and valleys of sort of assertiveness, almost following from the lesson that he learned from episode 1, where it's like we were monkeys. You have to, assert yourself and be the man against your boss, against your wife. And if these two guys are messing with you, then you might as well assert yourself to that. What's the worst that can happen? And so when he does finally decide, he does make a stand. But we are taken to, okay, which do you want to do first? Do you want to have Malvo getting out of jail, or do you want to talk about the auger?
The auger.
Okay, so we go to, they open up the trunk, and Numbers beats up Lester, and Wrench is taking the auger into the middle of the ice, as we saw before with the first mistaken identity of the man who they thought was Malvo. Looks like it's going to be a repeat of the last situation. And Numbers is attempting to get Lester to say that he killed Sam Hess, and he won't say it. And it's like, you might as well just say it, man. You're going to say it one way or another. And Lester starts to pee himself, puss out. It was him. It was him. And it's like, who is him? And then taser to the neck, stun gun to the neck. Numbers is down. And Wrench is using the auger, so he can't hear anything. And so we have another scene.
Anyway, because he's deaf.
Oh, that's true too. I forgot about that part. That's an important plot point. And so he runs off into the woods, finds the road, and there's a cop. And so he says, "I need a ride into town now." It's like, "We're not a taxi service, sir." So he punches the cop, as you do when you want to get arrested and taken into town. Which works for a time.
Yes, for a time. Until
he seems really happy with himself.
Yes, until Wrench and Numbers decide to start a bar fight. And you could tell that Numbers is letting out some genuine frustration, because he has been frustrated with the way Wrench has been kind of pushing this, because Wrench wants to investigate it. He doesn't seem to believe that somebody as scrawny as Lester would have had the balls to do in Sam Hess, and he thinks there might be something to this story about the weirdo that came in and asked, intimidate, you just kind of mocked Sam's sons and said, "No, I just wanted to get a look at you." Where whereas Numbers is kind of giving up on that thread. It's like, what? The guy, he's nailing the guy's wife, and he did it. But and so Numbers is kind of frustrated, just like, "Well, you talk," and just kind of, you can tell he's kind of enjoying it as they beat each other up, and that's a great. I mean, we'll talk about more of all the other stuff in the episode, but that's a great way to end it, putting him in the drunk tank with Lester.
Yeah.
And how they don't waste any time. Kind of just, we got you.
Well, and that awkward sort of, he's about to lie down, and then Wrench and Numbers come in, and then he stands up and sits down. He just, like a great performance in terms of being a bundle of nerves and obviously being caged.
I wanted Lester to kind of insult him by saying, maybe it's not a good idea to let the deaf guy take the lead in that situation. See if he had some balls to say it, but no, he's still too scared.
He is. He's milquetoast.
Very milquetoast.
So through the course of interview and interrogation, Frank Peterson is released with no evidence.
It's funny because the lieutenant from Duluth, Gus's boss, at first wasn't buying the act. He was pushing on him pretty hard, but he kept letting Frank interrupt him. And then when they finally got up to leave the room to check his story, Frank Malvo just looks and gives the evil smirk because he knows Gus is on the other side. And once again, Gus isn't going to say anything. Like he didn't tell his bosses what the guy said when they were driving, when he first picked him up about how he's fucking playing us. But then his boss does raise some good points. Like, did you get him on the dash cam video when you pulled him over? My dash cam hasn't worked. Did you get a better picture? Did you talk to? No. It's like, well, then we really don't have anything because the forensics came back and it turns out that the car was wiped clean. So there's nothing to tie it there. And granted, Malvo's information about being Frank Peterson checks out. There certainly is a real Frank Peterson. But because they end up losing faith in the photograph, they don't bother taking a picture of him there in the station to show people to fax to somewhere to find out if this is the actual guy or not, which they could have. They have the right to hold him for at least 48 hours if they wanted to. And like Gus suggested, they could show it to people around Bemidji, his photo, and they would know if they'd seen him or not. But the cops decide they kind of get cold feet and think that, no, Gus just screwed up. So he screwed up once already in a big way. We have nothing on here. Let's just, we'll cut him loose because they're just buying into his, which was crazy because at first the lieutenant wasn't buying the act. He's like, cut the shit. He just wanted to get right to it. But then they just kind of get cold feet and let him go. And sure enough, Gus is like, you're making a mistake. And Malvo just smiles at him. And his boss is like, 2 weeks desk duty. You want to make it 3 weeks? Like some dad handing out some punishment to a little itinerant kid. And so then he chases him down the hall, and Gus is like, how can you do that? What? How can you lie like that? Like you just did just now. And he just keeps up the whole Frank Peterson act. And then finally when he tells him Lorne Malvo, rather than getting scared, he smiles and turns him around and tells him a riddle. He's like, the human eye can see more shades of green than any other color. He's like, what? Human eye can see more shades of green than any other color. My question to you is why? And then he just leaves and gets in the car with Don. And he's like, Don, you got the stuff? And he's like, yeah, it's just been driving me crazy because he hit all the pet stores in town because he's got the locusts to go and grasshoppers and all that stuff to go deliver to the grocery store. But Gus is just frustrated. And then he has to call Molly, of course, and tell her that, they let him go because we didn't really have anything. Which really it was because the bosses are just getting, they got timid and let him go.
Well, he was arrested for no reason. And there's no evidence except for a blurry CCTV picture. And when trying to corroborate allegedly Frank Peterson's story, they get a positive, yep, that's where he was. He's well regarded in his community. So every position of power that the police had is undercut by Malvo's cover story.
Right, but they don't verify the story by checking to see if he's actually the person he claims he is by, a photo.
This is true. And I do agree that is somewhat of a plot hole, because I figure that if you are taken to a police station and printed, they are going to take your picture, no matter what.
Yeah, and they would fax it up there to see, okay, is it the guy? But it's kind of their own incompetence. Because remember, like Molly's dad, the former cop, said, oh yeah, Schmidt, that guy's a dumbass, or whatever he said. The guy's an ass, he's a prick, is what he said.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do, and we get to see sort of in the closing moments of Eat the Blame, we get Stavros at his desk, horribly signing things. His son comes in and says, "You're being mean to mom." We get to see sort of his perspective of tripping out on Adderall, which he's been on for days now, and suddenly cricket or a grasshopper is on the ledger, and so they kill it. It's either kill or be killed in this world, and so Stavros kills it. And then the screams begin. As the entire grocery store is swarmed with these crickets or these grasshoppers or locusts. Don't forget, we got mangoes and kiwis and crickets. Locusts. They're locusts. That's the whole thing, is because he's trying to invoke the 8 plagues, the plagues of Moses.
Yeah, the 10 plagues of Egypt, or at least whichever ones he's going to pick.
Right. And so he's blown away. Like, he's obviously visually shaken as well as being on the drugs. And we get the bookend of the episode where he says God is real.
Yeah, when Malvo calls him again, he's using like the voice box changer. He says, $1 million. Remember, God is watching. Oh,
do you understand?
Yeah. I love how Malvo is just standing on top of the rooftop, just lording over as people are fleeing the supermarket.
Yeah, and just
great.
Again, chuckling to the karma that he has dished out, the justice that he has done upon this man, and it continues because of the disrespect that was shown to him. Like, obviously I disagree with the heinous acts that Malvo is going through, but it's just interesting to see that steadfast reliance on his belief that what he's doing, while not good, is correct.
Yeah. Kind of like, I remember the first time I watched the series, I was still on Team Lester at this point. It's like, I wasn't really upset at him for killing his wife. It's like,
right.
Yeah, we went over that. She's a bitch. And by these TV show logic, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish by constantly kicking him when he's down, when he's genuinely trying to help and just daring him at it until he actually does it? And he tried to set up Malvo because he is the bad guy. He's like, we're going to get rid of this. And so far, he's just trying to cover his ass. And I remember at this point in the series, I was getting the sense that Molly seems to think that there's a bigger conspiracy going on. The Lester's more involved than she. Like, you can tell that Molly thinks that he's in cahoots with this mystery man, that there's some type of big murderous conspiracy, but we know there's not. It's just that Malvo showed up, saw this spineless coward, and decided to kind of needle him for fun, because that's what Malvo does for fun. And so, I was still kind of on Team Lester at this point in the show, and was still kind of actively rooting for him. How do you feel about him? How do you feel about him at this point?
Well, I still I feel pity for Lester. I'm waiting for his comeuppance. Like, I appreciate that he is a milquetoast, spineless man who has been abused his entire life by people, like, at least socially.
Yeah, like his brother, his wife, his Sam Hess,
his boss to a certain extent.
Yeah. Go out and deal with the widow Hess. I got this dental thing. It's like, what? It's like, that's not even his case. It's like, it sounds like that was your insurance case, and you just don't want to go deal with her because you know how it's gonna go.
Well, and that's it. And that's the thing. And I think that when Lester goes to see the widow Hess, that I completely understand why he's sort of taken by the attention, even though she is, manipulating him, trying to use him to see if it is a possibility to get more money or to get the money faster or what have you. He's still, she's paying attention to me and she's pretty. I'm getting the last laugh over Sam Hess kind of thing. And so it almost, like, it just feels like a circumstantial redemption, but that redemption is out of spite and violence, and it was initiated with overreacting bad advice from a psychopath. So while I do, and again, Martin Freeman is such a engaging actor, charming, I do enjoy everything I've seen him in. I'm waiting for this fucker to be taken down for all of the bad decisions. As Malvo said, Like, you made choices, and these are the consequences. And I'm just waiting for everything to sort of build up to the point where the pressure must be released. But I do want him to take care of that hand.
Yeah.
Like, that's my biggest concern right now.
Hand.
Because that's going to be gangrenous. You got to get some ointment on that shit. Go to a hospital.
You can't hide that from the police forever. Because, of course, the reason he's hiding it is because his official story is that he was in the basement knocked out when Pearl was killed and when Vern was killed. But if they find out that he's got the shotgun pellet in his hand, and that proves he was upstairs standing with Vern. And it's like, oh, well, then you saw what was going on and let Vern in the house then, that kind of thing. And he can't afford that.
Right.
And I like how Molly is realized that reasoning with Bill is just kind of pointless. Because when Gus told her that, oh, yeah, Lester's car is in the impound lot, she didn't bother going to Bill and saying, hey, Bill, Lester told me his car was at the auto shop. It turns out it was stolen. It is in the impound up in Duluth. But she's like, no, I'm not going to keep picking that fight with Bill because he's just going to aggravate him even more. Like when she went to report about her case, updating him about her case about the mystery man. And because it had a connection to Lester, he's like, I'm pretty ticked here. Like he doesn't want to listen to the actual update. It's like, oh, I can't stand. It's like, well, you're the one who came up with the drifter theory, and that's kind of how that kind of thing would go. Somebody drifts into town, did something bad, does some more bad things, but no, he's just mad because he's just not willing to take any bad words upon Lester. And so she's just like, I'm kind of done with Bill.
Well, and that's like, and it's interesting that you bring that up because when you watch other procedurals, like police procedurals, and you see how people interact and everything like that, it's all very specific. Someone had to go here to do that, and then they did that, and then they left a clue, and then the cops came in and everybody knew it, and it was like, whoa, and like everything is so specific. And what I like about this show is that a lot of it is just people bumping into people and doing things in the heat of the moment without elevating the sinister machinations of the villains or the virtuous intrepidity of the police or the good guys. And well, the police, even like Molly's made mistakes, so is Gus. And I just like these foibles that make it an engaging, entertaining, tense, melancholy, funny show.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these things are just coming together. It's great.
And before I forget, the parable that is the title of the second episode of the second one of that we covered, Eating the Blame, is where a guy who has to cook for the head of the house at the Shido temple or whatever, he is in such a haste to get the meal ready that he just goes into the garden with a knife and starts cutting up all these vegetables without looking, and he doesn't realize that he's actually accidentally decapitated a snake that was nesting in there. And he mixes all the soup together, hands out all the soup bowls at the table, and the head of the house happens to get the soup bowl which has a snake in it. And he calls the cook over. He's like, "What this? What is this?" He's like, "Oh shit!" So he leans down and just grabs the snake and eats it. And it's like, really good, sir, really great. And he's
Thank you.
Like literally eating the blame, which is kind of what Gus is doing here in a way, because his bosses are just like, he's not even gonna try and fight it with his boss anymore when he's like, "You're at desk duty 2 weeks," and blah blah blah. And even I remember the first time I was watching this episode, I kept hitting on that thing, take the man's picture and fax it to the other station and find out if this is him or not. And even Gus could have suggested that, but even Gus could tell that it's not worth it, especially after hearing from Molly's dad, who he found out was a former cop. It's like, yeah, that guy's a prick. It's like, don't even bother wasting your time with him.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how that applies. And I think it might also apply a bit with Stavros as he's starting to realize why, or at least he's starting to believe he knows why these things are happening to him, because he's thinking about how he got the money, and that, oh, even though I promised I would be God's humble servant, and maybe I've been morally wayward in some way and not been doing that, because I've been clearly doing all of this for me. You know, he's profitable, he's written a book, or he's, narcissistic probably, talking all about himself, which is the sin of pride and all that kind of stuff. And so now it's like he feels God is punishing him for his sins. And because of the Adderall, he's not thinking about the fact that this started with somebody, like an actual flesh and blood person, blackmailing him. He's now thinking that God is actually responsible because the Adderall's fucked up his brain so much. So that could be another aspect of the whole eating the blame application for that title, I think.
Well, we'll have to see how it goes forward, just in terms of eating the blame, because he does have to actually eat the blame. Whereas I think Gus is doing it more accurately. Like, he is the one who's sort of like, well, I did this. He confesses his sin to sin to Molly, and the process. He's definitely the one who's sort of self-flagellating over his own mistake, which I assume eating the head of a snake would be relatively unpleasant. But yeah, no, it is interesting, and I'm looking forward. And again, this episode ends with Wrench and Numbers and Lester in a jail cell, and with Malvo overlooking the rewards of his revenge, I guess.
Do you think it's odd that, given that the whole Sam Hess thing is separate from what happened at Lester's house, that Lester didn't simply tell Molly that, hey, these two guys are harassing me about Sam, and I think they're really bad dudes? Because it's like, throw a bone. He knows she's after him. It's like, throw her a bone to go chase. These guys clearly are something. She'll figure it out and get these two guys off your back, potentially. Because it just feels like some of these problems Lester's having with these guys would be solved if he just told the cops about them. Especially since he knows he's got Bill on his side as chief of police. It's like, hey, there are these weirdos coming around asking about Sam and they're harassing me. And instead he's just, like, he could have told the cop who he asked the ride for, I've just been kidnapped. And that's the car they kidnapped me in and threw me in the trunk. But instead he's just, oh, I'll just punch you instead. And it's like, well, what? Okay, so you go to jail overnight or something. That's not going to solve your problem if these guys are still here looking for you, you know?
Well, and yeah, but I'm like, oh yeah, oh geez. But I'm just sort of looking at it as, because of the lies, the web of lies, those who practice to deceive, whatever. I forget the rest of it. Anyway, no, but like, I think that he just thinks he's dug himself a hole and he has to take care of it himself, and hopefully it goes away. And that's perfectly represented by the wound on his hand. He's doing whatever he can, but he's hoping that it's just going to go away.
Mm.
Or at least that's my interpretation.
That's a pretty good interpretation, actually. Because that was something that was bugging me on the first time I watched this series as well. Because it's like, you know, Bill thinks the world of you and is too stupid to think you could have anything to do with anything. Like, his Bill hasn't even asked his own question how his theory of this being drifters and drugs would in any way involve your wife, Pearl, to be at the house, or why Vern would be at the house. And so, capitalize on that guy's stupidity and love of you and just get these two fuckers off your back. But no, that actually kind of makes sense. He's starting to grow a pair, as it were. He's going to deal with it himself in a way. Or at least that's what he might be thinking that in some way. Like when he called his brother and, oh yeah, I'm actually just pranking you, because he found out that he had the taser in his pocket.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think peaks and valleys of him actually being able to sort of take control of his own life. And it happens at times, and at other times he like really just cowers. Mm-hmm. So I am looking forward. That's 4 episodes in, so we're almost halfway. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to next week. Obviously, we're not rating this, but I'm still on the thumbs up. I'm still enjoying. And obviously, if this is your second run and you agreed to talk to me about it, you're okay with it.
Oh, this is probably my 5th run on this season.
See, there you go.
I love the show. It's great. I think this one is the funnest in turn, like really capturing that Fargo spirit and fun. Season 2 is probably the best. That's the one with Kirsten Dunst and Bokeem Woodbine. And season 3 is, I think, the funniest. Season 4 is the one I admittedly still got. The reason I had a problem getting into season 4 is that the ensemble was so huge that it felt, after watching the first 2 episode premiere, that we didn't really get much accomplished because there were just so many people they're introducing. It's like, do I really want to invest in all? Because it was a late night show and I was busy back at the time. But I'll probably wait to watch that one with you when we watch it for the first time, when we eventually get to it. I think around April, if we continue 2 episodes a week thing.
Yeah, no, I'm having a blast with this, so I'm looking forward to it. Well, and we're gonna have to. We're sort of coasting through. When we do get to season 5, it'll be
right. Because only the first 2 episodes of season 5 will be shown at first, and then it'll be 1 episode for each following week. And season 4 actually has 11 episodes because there were so many characters. It just took that long. That's the longest series. The rest of them are all 10.
Well, I am totally invested, and I'm looking forward. I can't wait. And I hope that everyone who was here comes back. I wanted to say thank you to Lemon Pie Lemon for being here. I got mangoes and kiwis in January. That's true. You got some grasshoppers as well. Matt G was here. Thank you, Matt G. And Edge of Time is here saying, the man formerly thought to be Malvo, please answer the white courtesy phone. And with the townies, Edge of Time commenting on Captain Milquetoast and the post roasties. I like that. And finally, Edge of Time says, pick the wrong day to quit using niceties. Fuck, you did. Anyway. So that's great. I hope you guys can make it back and follow along on season 1 as we herald the arrival of John Hamm and keep going back to Fargo. This is fun, man. I'm having a blast. Thank you.
Yes, this is a fun series, and you're gonna like next week.
Oh, I can't wait.
5 and 6, because these series, they have their peaks and valleys. They know how to wheel you in a little bit of mystery, and then we gotta get some action in there and keep throw in a few twists and plot twists and stuff and keep it fun. So that's what this series does, and it'll be fun next week. Can't wait to talk about it.
I'll see you next week then, and I'll see all you guys next week.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Kat. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.